Dr. Night Echoes. When I was about 8 or 9, my dad took me for a walk in the bush one weekend. My mom and sister were overseas visiting family. The forest path went on for about 45 minutes and led to a small graveyard. I walked around, looking at the flowers and stones on the graves. Some of the graves had colored stones on top. One was green and white. I picked it up and ran to my dad to show him. He looked serious and asked where I found it. I pointed to the grave. He told me to put it back. We did not talk about it again. On the way home, my dad bought dinner and a toy car that I could build myself. I spent a few hours that night working on it before going to bed. The next morning, I woke up early to keep building. My room was on the second floor. I was facing the window because it had good light. While I was building, I looked up and saw someone outside the window. The person stood there for a few seconds. I could not see their face. Then they turned to the left and went up. Not down or away, just up. I ran to my dad's room and got into his bed. He was still asleep. Later that day, I told him what I saw. He believed me and said it was probably because I touched that person's grave. I used to believe that the things I saw were real, and sometimes I still do. One thing that happened recently was while I was watching TV late at night. I was sitting there staring at the screen when I saw a shadow in the corner of my eye. Without moving my head, I tried to focus on it. The shadow started to grow bigger and take shape, and I began to panic. I told myself it wasn't real, and that it was just a glitch in my vision. It was my peripheral vision playing tricks on me. The shadow kept forming until I could see the shape of a faceless old man wearing a dark, tattered coat and hat. I froze, staring at it. Then I blinked and it disappeared. It took me a while to calm down and convince myself it wasn't real. I told myself it was just because I was half asleep sitting in low light and my eyes were tired. Still, it freaks me out every time I think about it. It always makes me want to turn around and check that no one is standing behind me. This happened about 1.5 to 2 years ago, when we were getting new carpet put in. So for a few days, the floor was just that spongy underlay, with the papery top exposed, and it made a distinct crinkling sound whenever you walked on it. One night I was heading upstairs after playing with my dog, who was already asleep downstairs, and about halfway up, I heard footsteps fast and heavy running across the exposed underlay upstairs. The sound was clear as day, that paper-like crunch echoing down the hall, and I froze because I was home alone, and my dog was still asleep. The footsteps went straight into my parents' room, which has always had a horrible, uneasy feeling, like something is off about it even in daylight. I worked up enough nerve to check, but there was no one there. That wasn't the only weird thing about the place, because every now and then, we'd all see this strange light in the house that would shimmer and drift, almost like that void effect from Doctor Who. Everyone has seen it at least once, but no one can explain it. And then there are the figures, dark shapes that move in the corner of your eye at night just long enough to make your heart stop. I try to brush it off and tell myself it's nothing, but honestly, I'm terrified of that house. And even now, thinking about it makes my skin crawl. When I was 14, I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth before bed. Everything was normal until I finished and started to walk out. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the shower curtain move just slightly, like someone was trying to hide behind it. I thought it was my brother messing with me because he used to pull little scares like that all the time. So I laughed a bit, grabbed the curtain and said, "I saw you," as I yanked it open. But it wasn't my brother. There was a woman standing there, pale, still, and silent. She didn't move or make a sound, just stood there staring. I screamed and ran straight out of the bathroom. My brother came running from his room, and when I told him what happened, he went in to check, but there was no one there. The curtain was open, and the shower was empty. I know what I saw, and I never used that bathroom again. I like to go for runs after 9 p.m., and I live in a safe neighborhood in the suburbs where most people are older or have young kids. About a week or two ago, I went out for a run. There are 2 small wooded areas in my subdivision where the houses have backyards that go right into the trees. When I got to the last house, on the sidewalk next to one of the wooded areas, I heard rustling in the bushes. I usually have my iPod when I run, so I'm not used to hearing sounds at night. I ignored it for a second. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. I looked over and saw a very skinny, naked figure digging in the ground with its back to me. It was bald and grayish, and its back was thin and bony. The moment I looked straight at it, the thing stopped moving and stayed completely still. I panicked and started running faster. When I reached the streetlights, about 2 blocks ahead, they started turning off, one by one. It felt unreal, like something out of a horror movie. I still don't fully believe it happened, and I haven't told anyone except my boyfriend, because even now, it doesn't feel real. I was driving home late at night after a double shift, and I'll admit I was exhausted. I had the radio blaring to keep myself awake as I took a back road through the woods, a shortcut I'd learned to use from time to time. During the day, that road was always busy and congested, but at night, it was completely empty, except for the occasional deer or raccoon. I was driving along, half singing to the music, and going faster than I should have, when I took a corner too quickly. Right there in front of me was a young girl, maybe 19 or 20, with long dark hair, wearing jeans and a light-colored blouse. For a split second, I saw her eyes in my headlights, the look of shock and fear on her face, and I swerved hard off the road and into a ditch. There was no way I hadn't hit her. I jumped out of the car and ran back toward the spot where I'd seen her trying to flag down a passing car to call 911. This was before everyone had cell phones. The cops and EMTs arrived, searched the area, and found nothing. No body, no sign of anyone. They even gave me a sobriety test on the spot. When I finally got home, much later than expected, my wife was waiting for me, worried. I told her what happened, still shaken, and I couldn't stop describing the girl's face. It was burned into my mind. My wife went pale, then ran upstairs to grab an old yearbook. She told me to flip through the senior photos. On page 3, there she was, the exact girl I had seen on that road. When I asked if my wife knew her or her family, she told me something that made my blood run cold. The girl had died 3 years earlier in a hit-and-run accident on that same curve. I wasn't from the area. I'd never heard any local ghost stories or news about her. I had no way of knowing who she was. To this day, I still don't know what really happened. Maybe I was just too tired. Maybe I'd seen her face somewhere before, and my mind filled in the blanks. Or maybe, just maybe, I really did see her that night. All I know for sure is that I can still see her face in those headlights, clear as day. When my sister was a baby, she would cry all night unless she was sleeping in bed with my mom. My stepdad worked nights at the hospital, so most of the time, it was just the 2 of them at home. One night, my mom said she woke up suddenly because she felt something tapping her shoulder. It wasn't a soft touch either, she said. It felt like a hard, bony finger pressing against her skin. When she opened her eyes, she realized she had rolled over in her sleep and was lying on top of my sister. My sister's face was turning red, barely able to breathe. My mom pulled her up, terrified, and within moments my sister started crying again. She was okay, but only because my mom had woken up in time. At first, my mom thought my stepdad had come home early and had poked her awake. But when she looked around, she was completely alone. He didn't get home until the next morning. To this day, my mom swears it wasn't just a coincidence. She believes something, or someone, was there that night, that something reached out and tapped her shoulder, just in time to save my sister's life. I once got a job installing a security system in an old house. The family that had just moved in had a little boy about 5 years old. He was playing around by himself, and every now and then he would ask random questions to what seemed like me. I answered one of his questions and he replied, "Oh, sorry, I was just talking to my friend." His mother poked her head in and told me that he had found a new friend since they moved in. Then she leaned in closer and joked, "It's actually kind of creepy." Later that day, the boy was in the kitchen trying to reach a bag of chips on top of the fridge. I told him he should probably get down off the counter and that I could grab them for him. He climbed down and said, "Oh, my friend will get it." I shrugged it off and went back to running cable through the wall. All of a sudden, the bag of chips exploded onto the floor. I turned around thinking the kid must have climbed back onto the counter, but he was standing on the floor picking up the chips. He looked at me and said, "My friend accidentally knocked them off." I asked where his friend was now, and he pointed to the top of the fridge and said, "He's right up there, smiling at you." I've never felt such a chill in my life. My sister and I were staying in a small bed and breakfast in Ireland, and it was one of those old stone places that looked cozy during the day, but felt different once the lights went out. We were sharing a room upstairs and had been chatting for a while before deciding to sleep. When we finally turned off the lights and settled in, the radio on the bedside table suddenly came on by itself. It wasn't tuned to a station, just a strange mix of static and what sounded like someone speaking in Gaelic. It started off quiet, then grew louder, like someone was slowly turning the volume knob. I reached over to switch it off, but the button was already in the off position. And when that didn't work, we just unplugged it. The room went silent for a few seconds before a slow, hollow knocking started from inside the cupboard across the room. We both froze, but eventually opened it and found a small wooden hatch built into the floor with hinges and a handle, like a regular door, just smaller and in the wrong place. The knocking kept going until I touched the handle. Then it stopped completely. The hatch was locked, and we never found out what was underneath. But I still think about that night and how it felt like something down there knew we were listening. When I lived in my first house, weird things happened all the time. And it started small with noises above my bed in the attic. Heavy creaks and slow shuffling that sounded too big to be rodents. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for it to stop, but it never did. One night, I was half asleep when something grabbed my feet and started pulling hard, and I kicked out in panic until whatever it was let go. The room went completely silent, but I couldn't bring myself to move, and just lay there, staring into the dark, pretending to be asleep. A few weeks later, I woke up around midnight and my bedroom door was open, and my sister was standing there with a wide, unnatural smile on her face, like her cheeks were straining to hold it. She didn't say anything, just stared at me for what felt like forever before turning and walking away. And the next morning she swore she didn't remember a thing. The last major thing happened in winter, around 7 in the evening, and it was already dark. I was home alone, lying on my bed, when I saw a black cloaked figure float silently into the bathroom, and the air turned icy. I couldn't move or even think, and I just remember feeling completely drained. After that, the toys started acting up, and they'd move or switch on by themselves in the middle of the night. My wardrobe, which sat right next to my bed, always gave me the worst feeling, like something was waiting on the other side of the door. And I still don't know what any of it was, but I've never been able to shake the feeling that something in that house was watching me. My childhood best friend had a Rottweiler named Tyler, who passed away a few years before we started hanging out one night. I stayed over at his house and woke up in the middle of the night to see a Rottweiler staring right at me. I thought it was his new dog, Rowdy, so I reached out to pet him, but my hand went straight through, like there was nothing there. I froze, staring at the spot where the dog had been, but he was gone. I barely slept after that. The next morning, I told my friend what happened, and he just nodded, like it wasn't a big deal. His parents said they still saw or heard Tyler around the house every now and then, like he never really left. That moment stuck with me, and even though I have had a few strange experiences since then, seeing that ghost dog was what made me believe that some things really do stay behind. I was watching TV late one night, half awake, lost in the noise. It felt like someone pressed a red-hot finger straight into my skin. I jumped up and grabbed the back of my neck. It was wet. When I pulled my hand away, there was blood on my fingertips. I turned toward the couch, the wall, the floor. Nothing around me could have caused it. No nails sticking out, no glass, nothing sharp. I ran to the bathroom mirror, and when I turned around, I froze. There were 5 marks on my neck, perfectly spaced, round, deep enough to break skin. They looked like fingerprints, human fingerprints. I stood there staring at them, waiting for something to make sense. Maybe I'd scratched myself somehow. Maybe it was a reaction, a rash, but the shape was too exact, too deliberate. The marks started to darken, like bruises forming under the skin. My hands were shaking. I checked every inch of that couch, every corner of the room. Nothing. The air felt heavier, like someone else was there, just outside the edge of sight. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, the pain was worse. The wounds had scabbed over. 5 small, dark spots that throbbed when I moved my head. When I pressed them, it almost felt like there was something beneath the skin, something pulsing, faintly, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. It's been 3 days now. The bruises haven't faded. They've spread, almost like hands gripping tighter. I keep catching myself glancing over my shoulder even when I'm alone. And sometimes, when the TV's on and the light flickers across the couch, I swear I see a shadow behind me, leaning close, reaching out.